From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
A lot has been written about President John F. Kennedy, but a new book looks to answer the question,
what's he like?
Author Chris Matthews digs up new information on the most scrutinized Kennedy, including what he says inspired the young president to come up with the famous Ask Not inaugural speech. Plus, never shy to share his political opinion, hear what the feisty cable news host has to say about the prospect of Newt Gingrich as the Republican nominee for president.
Well, it's grotesque.
Our guest this week on Newsmakers, author of Jack Kennedy, Elusive Hero, and host of MSNBC's Hardball, Chris Matthews.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi, and of course we welcome our guest, author of Jack Kennedy, Elusive Hero, and host of MSNBC's Hardball, Chris Matthews. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning, Tim. Congratulations on the book. Excellent read, and I heard you had quite a turnout at
Yeah, we had 500 people waiting in line over there at Barrington Books. They waited for, I think we started around 1, and we finished signing, I finished signing at 5. Wow. So some people waited 4 hours.
And I heard you have more books to sign today.
Yeah, I'm doing a bunch. We did a party last night, for Tides Family Services, the Christian Brothers operation for poor kids. And then we had another 150 there. And then I did another 150. I keep doing hundreds and hundreds of books, and it's a good deal.
Hopefully each and every one of them find a book.
Besides the fact that I wrote the book and my ego's involved in spending all these years writing it, I really want people to know this story. And I think America needs to have a hero of a kind who's a real hero.
Well, let me ask you about that.
And I think a real war hero, a real guy who really did serve his country, and a guy who really did come through when we needed him and got us through the Cold War without having a nuclear war. He did that.
Which is...
it's not legacy or legend. It actually happened. And I think young people today, your guys' age, I don't think you've had a hero in a while. And I think they ought to know that. People ought to go out and say, this country's capable of having great heroes like Franklin Roosevelt as president, Abraham Lincoln. Well, we had one in my time, Jack Kennedy.
Was he the last hero, in your opinion, that we've had?
Well, Reagan did some good things. I'm not going to knock Reagan. I always think the conservatives have a right to a hero. And I think that he was... very effective in recognizing Gorbachev and ending the Cold War. And I think he was a real American in the sense that he understood that you have to compromise and get things done.
A lot of books have been written with John F. Kennedy as a subject of them. I found that you did break some new ground in this, most notable.
Well, I'd hope so. The whole book is new, buddy. And let me tell you something. Books before are very interesting, but this is the book about him, the guy. I wanted to find Jack Kennedy, the guy. If you're in a room with him at midnight, having a drink with him, or smoking a cigar, there's little cigars of his, and you're thinking, I want to know what it was like to be with Jack Kennedy. What I went with this book with one purpose, to answer the question he wanted to answer. And the reason he said people read biographies, Jack Kennedy, what's he like? What's he like? And guys like Vicki Kennedy's dad have written me recently saying, I brought him back alive. I wanted to bring him back in the room with us again so we'd know what he was like again.
Well, what did you learn? That's you admired JFK
well,
a
couple of things. First of all, the myth that he went into politics because his father told him to. What a nonsensical myth that is. Nobody becomes a politician because somebody tells him to. You don't get the bug from somebody giving it to you. You have to have it. From the time he was 14 years old, he had read Churchill's History of World War I. He read the New York Times every day in high school. He ran for student council. We all know those guys. They ran for student council every year. He ran first year, second year at Harvard. He was headed towards law school. Everything about him was a political life. By the way, what else would he have done?
He was sick all the time.
And he was, the other part about his sickness.
That comes through over and over.
The sickness of a guy who, and Jackie got me on this with her commentary right after he was killed in that interview with Teddy White.
In life.
From the time he was really young, he was always sick. I think he had the record in the infirmary at Choate School. He had scarlet fever, asthma, but then he had, for a long time they thought he had leukemia. He had colitis. He had stomach problems like he could never solve his whole life. He had this knot in his stomach right to the end. He had the back problem from the time he was born practically. One leg was an inch shorter than the other. He barely got in the Navy. He cheated his way in the Navy, basically. David I. Walsh, the senator of Massachusetts, got him through. He was chairman of the Navy Committee. Back was made a lot worse after his boat was cut in half by the Japanese destroyer. He was walking, but even before that, he was walking around the ship with a sewing, looking for a needle and thread so he could fix his girdle. This thing that held his back together. His corset held his back together. He had to sleep on a plywood sheet every night or a table. All his life, he couldn't really walk around normally. If you look at the old tapes, you can see it of him inability. And all the time, in fact, he once said, somebody said, could your life have been better? He said, I wish I had more good days. So more days than you can believe. 6 shots of Provocaine a day for his back at the end, just to be able to walk. He couldn't lean over and pick up a golf club. He couldn't, most of the time, walk up and down stairs. They had a cherry picker to put him on Air Force one time, and he kept most of this secret from people. He was a classic World War II guy who kept, didn't complain, didn't explain.
That's not a secret he could have kept today.
Not so well.
Yeah.
But I think, all these politicians whine today about how their lives are being invaded. If you're discreet and have a normal life, you can have a pretty good life in politics.
Yeah, but
it's a good life, politics, and that's why they fight to the end for these jobs.
You think so?
They tell how rough it is, right? Have you ever seen any of them quit? They don't quit. They love it. It's a great life. They don't make $1 zillion. They make an okay income, but the most important thing is they love being politicians. It's a great life. You get to go vote in the Congress with a bunch of other guys that hang out and have friends, and you get to do things that are interesting.
Yeah.
You get to be something of a celebrity. I mean, but the important thing is you get to do something you think is important in your whole life.
Kennedy, his personality...
Most jobs can be boring.
Yes, this is
rough,
true.
and you have to put up with terrible bosses. Well, the politician's boss is the public. Tough. They can handle it. They wanted the job and they could do it. And a lot of them have the right personalities to do it, You think Obama has a tough life? I don't think so. Look at him. He's doing having a good time.
Yeah, but you said he doesn't seem happy in that job.
Well, he ought to be happier.
But you did say he doesn't seem happy.
I think he doesn't look happy enough for me. Because I think presidents ought to be happy guys. They're made the top guy in the United States. They ought to appreciate it. And she ought to appreciate it, too.
Let's go back to JFK.
It's really important. I think people...
You're like hurting eel to interview, by the way.
Let me tell you something. When you elect somebody president, they should appreciate it.
Yeah.
You pick them as the top person in the country. Just get a little giggle out of it once in a while. It's not like a burden. It's an okay job being president of the United States.
Kennedy, his personality, you clearly admire him, but you made clear he could be cold, he could be compartmentalized, he had flaws.
He had incredible detachment.
I couldn't decide at times if I would have liked him. If you could tell these people were so devoted to him, but
well, Nixon loved him.
How do you balance that?
Everybody loved the guy because people that don't need you are the most charming. They can enjoy your company, but they don't need you, and they're the most engaging people. I mean, let's think about the people fall in love with all the time. They're fey, they're detached, they don't need you. They're not sweaty. They're not sitting around worrying about whether you love them or not. They're the people you fall in love with, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that your experience?
Sure.
Okay.
You brought up.
I think, and love is always unequal too. I mean, Jackie was totally enthralled with Jack to the end, and Jack wasn't the most faithful guy in the world, and yet
you could say that
she was absolutely in love with him, and to the end.
To the end.
Look at. I came across a piece of tape of her racing after the gurney at Parkland Hospital in Dallas. It's out of Keats. It's poetic to see her chasing after this guy, and also the fact that she was the age that he was when he first laid eyes on her when he died. There was an age difference there, 12 years. And
36 and 24.
She was a young woman, a girl almost. I mean, she was young when he died, and very young when they met. And he was this mature bachelor. I love this story about his best friend, Lem Billings, going to her the day of the wedding and saying, now this guy's a bachelor, you got it? He's not going to change. And then going back to Jack and say, I told her about you, and he said, good.
I mean, she could have known before the wedding, by the way.
Well, she said, well, she married a guy like her dad and a guy like his dad. I mean, there's a lot of old school. I mean, she said in that interview we read recently about how I had kind of an Asiatic Victorian marriage, which is, it wasn't equal in terms of power. I mean, Jack always wanted to be in charge. He liked being in control.
Early in JFK's political life, you wrote in the book that he noted, quote, the one great failure of American government is the government of critics.
Yeah, is that people like you guys?
Us. Not you.
No, I think it's us. I think it's us. I think it's a good point. Well, it's easier to sit like I do and criticize even Obama, who I'm obviously for, but to be tough on the ring side and say, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? That's easier. There's no doubt about it. And I think that's what he meant.
But
what he did was he went around. What he was doing was keeping a diary as he was running for Congress the first time in '46, and he would like type notes down. People would say he'd learn maxims about politics, like it's not about having friends, it's about having Confederates. People that really go in there. That's one problem I think President Obama has today, which is he doesn't have people who will go on Sunday talk shows and defend him. Even his own cabinet seems like they're under the Hatch Act. I mean, these guys, are we in politics? Name a cabinet member that ever says anything positive about him, or a Democrat. Or Pelosi, hey, aren't you a Democrat? Isn't he head of the Democratic Party? And sometimes I think Obama doesn't know he's head of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
In fact, if you guys had him here and say, are you head of the Democratic Party? I don't think he'd say that. He doesn't want to think of himself as a politician, which I think is his problem. He's the leader of the Democratic Party, which is a competitive political party with the Republicans, and he ought to just rally to those people and embrace his Confederates, and he doesn't seem to like to do that.
So yeah, let's stick with Obama and Kennedy. I saw so many parallels between them reading your book. They're both seem kind of detached personalities, vaulted to prominence at national conventions. They both came from marginalized ethnic groups, young, charismatic, celebrities, tagged as inexperienced in the Senate, sometimes frosty relationship with the liberals. Do you think, is that fair? There's a lot of parallels, but where are the differences too?
Obama's more of a liberal than Kennedy. I mean, but the difference is experience. I mean, Jack Kennedy had been an officer in World War II. He'd been a hero in World War II, a commander of a vessel. I mean, he had real command experience as an executive before he ever ran for Congress. Then 14 years in Congress. Obama was an overnight sensation. And also, I think Obama got it wrong. Not that it's not the way he should have done it. He inspired me, thrilled me with his oratory. Jack Kennedy couldn't give a speech to save his life till about 1960. It took him a long. He had a speech coach right up until his debates with Nixon, trying to learn how to give a speech. And then, of course, he was a fabulous.
That would shock people today who know the story about the debates.
He had to learn. Go back and find a good speech by Jack Kennedy before '60.
Well, television helped him so much, right? I mean, people have heard that debate on the radio.
He's great looking, and he. Yeah, that's another myth. You listen to Jack Kennedy on radio. He's great. He was as smart as Nixon.
Who was it that said he thought Nixon won that debate?
Well, Johnson was listening on the radio and he thought Nixon had won.
Right.
And Lodge watched it. Lodge wasn't the nicest guy in the world. Right. And very arrogant. And Lodge,
Henry Cabot Lodge.
He thought he was Nixon's running mate. The great thing about the story I told here is that these names keep recurring. The same guy that Jack Kennedy ran against for the Senate and beat became Richard Nixon's running mate, and then he became Jack Kennedy's ambassador to Vietnam. They keep coming back.
Nixon, too. Talk
the
about
same
Nixon.
names keep coming back.
You talk
Nixon
about
loved Kennedy.
Clearly.
They were good friends. It seems.
Much more than
they really loved Kennedy, and he cried the night that Jack was dying in 1954. Nixon's crying in the car. I got it from a Secret Service agent.
Yeah.
He really had affection for Kennedy. That's why this story is great, because it's about human experience and rivalry and love and the contest for power but the real human part of this guy here. I love that. I didn't design this. I came across this picture, and that when my publisher, the editor-in-chief of Simon & Schuster, showed me that picture, I said, "That's the cover."
Yeah.
It wasn't like a decision. Look at this. Like he dies halfway through his life. The white. All this powerful imagery. The guy all alone there on the beach. This looks like Cape Cod. Just walking off into the distance, sort of, just a guy. You know, very poetic, and I just said, that's it.
Chris, I want to end the segment with this. In reading this book, you get a sense in JFK's calls for service to the country. It went beyond his inaugural speech, the Ask Not speech, which you uncovered in this, that came from his prep school years.
It came from his headmaster, yeah.
So, I'm just wondering...
We're only halfway down here.
Well, we're working on it.
We're halfway down here.
The act of...
So I do this, so I know these lists, you know. I know these lists you start with.
I know, that's why you're a dangerous interview.
Yeah, exactly.
You wrote, the act of asking, in fact, marked the passage of John Kennedy through his public life. It begs the question, if in post-9/11 USA, if we missed opportunities for a rallying call. Yeah. How so?
So, I mean, anybody older than me who remembers World War II will remember the phrase war effort. It's a wonderful American phrase, and the British had it too, war effort. It's where everybody does something, whether it's collect scrap metal or newspapers or work in a war factory or buy war bonds, and everybody felt that you were part of the front. You may not be the guy out there risking his life every hour, but you were part of the effort, and it was a wonderful national experience and patriotic experience. Kennedy recalled that with Ask Not, and he did it with the Peace Corps and the Special Forces, and everything was aimed at avoiding a nuclear war with the Soviets, and it was everybody doing something. Bush, like, I'm not a Bush hater. I think W was not a great president because
you voted for him, didn't you?
Before I knew it was going to happen, yeah. I thought he had a hunch about this country, and Gore didn't have it. I thought Gore was a little geeky, a little strange, and fearful. He tried to scare us. I thought Bush had a real opportunity. First of all, he shouldn't have gone to Iraq. If the country wanted to go after Al-Qaeda and get bin Laden, he should have stayed on that trail and stayed out of the other war. There was a distraction and a horrible loss. And then he gave us tax cuts. I mean, a tax cut, you don't give people a tax cut during war because it sends the wrong message. It says some people are going to get a break and some people are going to get killed. That's not a unifier. You got to say, we're not all going to get killed in this war. Some people are. We're all going to take a risk and we're all going to pay some pain. We're all going to contribute to this war because we shouldn't have wars unless we're willing to pay a price. Nobody should be in a country that's at war without paying a price. Nobody should live in a country at war that's not paying a price. Because it's the only way to make the fella out front, or the woman out front in some cases, to know that we're behind them. You got to sacrifice. The idea of giving a tax cut to the rich in the middle of a war is indecent. It's grotesque. Now you're getting into my political views, but they're real.
And we're going to want more about that.
If you don't do that, you're not a leader. And what Kennedy did was make us all feel part of the same thing. We were a united country. And I think Bush blew it. And I think Obama's blown it. He hasn't asked anybody to do anything. We had a million people. How many people were on the Washington Wall when he was inaugurated? More African Americans than I ever saw on the Washington Wall. For the first time, they actually came out of the neighborhoods to that. And what did he do? He sent everybody home. I'm smart. Watch me do this thing. I'm smart. I'm going to be a smart president. I don't need you. Worst mistake. He should have immediately started asking people to do things. Asking American people to participate. Then we would feel it was our administration, not his. This is essential politics, and I don't think he's got it right yet.
Okay, we're going to take a break on the program. We're going to continue this theme with our guest, Chris Matthews. He's author of the book Jack Kennedy, Elusive Hero, and of course, host of MSNBC's Hardball. I'm Tim White. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my right, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Chris Matthews, author of Jack Kennedy, Elusive Hero, and host of MSNBC's Hardball. Chris, I want to expand more on yourself, if you will. In an interview with Alex Witt of MSNBC, you had some pretty sharp words for President Obama. Let's take a listen.
And he should be sitting late at night now with senators and members of Congress and governors working together on how they're going to win this political fight that's coming. I don't have a sense that he's ever had a meeting. I hear stories that you will not believe. Not a single phone call since the last election. They don't call. He never calls. That's the message. Members of Congress, I keep asking, when did you hear from him last?
Silence.
He doesn't like their company.
Some pretty tough words for the president.
It's true. By the way, find somebody who disagrees with it.
Well, so does this mean he's a one-term president?
No, I think there's a couple of things that are odd about this president, which I think he has to fix. He's a leader of the Democratic Party. He's a leader of a political party. He doesn't act it. He acts like he's above politics. He acts like he has no political allies, and he doesn't. His cabinet members have not been dog-trained into going on television and fighting for his causes. Every week on television, I watch Sunday television. You guys are part of it. I don't see any Democrats coming on television singing his praises or attacking the other side. The other side comes on every week, not just on Fox, but all the networks, and blasts this guy. And his own party acts like they're a bunch of individuals instead of part of his political party. It's not entirely their fault. I don't think he embraces them as his cohorts, as his Confederates. He acts like he's apart from all this. And by the way, that's what happens. He looks like he's apart.
Who do you think will be the Republican nominee?
Newt's up in a Des Moines Register poll this morning.
Right now, I'd say Newt.
Really?
And what do you think of that?
Well, it's grotesque. I mean, I watched him as he rose to power and how he rose to power.
Because you were working for Tip O'Neill when he was coming up,
I was watching the way he came to power was basically assassinating people's character, calling people corrupt. Everybody was corrupt. Jim Wright was corrupt. The whole crowd. Anybody on the opposite side of the aisle from him is corrupt. And the Democratic Party is made up of traitors. I mean, go back and look what he did to get power. Well, he got it in the worst way, and I think he has an instinct for the juggler. He's an opportunist. He's very good at it. But I don't think he's a positive force. I think Romney is a neutral force that could be a good force, who tries to be an effective executive. But he doesn't have the moxie that Newt has. Newt is a tremendous opportunist. Here's where Newt is dangerous politically if you're on the other side. I'll go to this positive strengths. If you're in an hour-and-a-half debate, somewhere in that debate, 42 minutes in or 52 minutes in, he will hear the other guy say something. and he will jump on it, and he will be brilliant. He has a real mind. He doesn't have to be trained with talking points. He doesn't have to go in with a strategy. He will see the opportunity, and he will leap, and he will create that night debate in that moment. So if you're Obama, you may say you look forward to running against Newt with all his baggage rather than Mitt. But Mitt will be like one of these white boxers from England. You know, they got like one punch. And that, you know, those guys like Webner and those guys, they go, ugh. And he will throw that punch like, you've had your chance and you blew it, Mr. President. And all, you know, in all fairness. Then, you know, of course, Obama knows what that punch is going to be. And he will slam back at him. With Newt, he'll have a punch, he'll take the punch, Obama will come back with his punch, and then he'll have a better one. He will think of something. So Newt will be a very dangerous gladiator out there. And I think that's why the Republican activists want him, because they know that in the debate he'll be ferocious. And they're pretty confident, I should say, that Mitt Romney will not be ferocious in the debate. He'll be a gentleman, like Lieberman or Dick Cheney in a debate. Well, a gentleman sitting at a card table, blah, 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 blah. But it won't be that ferocious shot. Newt's willing to take a lot of scar tissue to deliver a thunderous blow. He doesn't mind you hating him afterwards. He'll blow, and that's what I think. By the way, the Republican Party right now is so angry at Obama, so angry at conditions today, and they're fair enough. They want somebody who shares that ferocity. And I don't think Mitt has that ferocity.
Let me ask you something.
But you know what? Newt may blow it.
Yeah, well, we've seen it before.
It might blow it.
Let me ask you about some parochial. Our two senators, Jack Reed and Sheldon Whitehouse. Yeah. What's the scoop on them in Washington?
I think they're both great. So what am I going to say?
Well, what's their level of influence in Washington?
Yeah, I think they're very impressive guys, very clean. That's a big thing, to be clean as heck, and they are. That's a big thing. Not every politician's clean, you know, and they're great. And I think they're likable. Yeah. I've gotten to know Sheldon a little bit, and I find him very likable. And I've seen him at a couple of sort of events with other senators around, and he was there last night at the Tides Family Services event for the Christian Brothers. And I think he's really trying to reach out and do the things politicians in a small state really have to do. I mean, you really have to get around and be there that night. I mean, Woody Allen was right. Showing up is really important. People don't get it. Oh, I'll send a note, I couldn't make the funeral. No, you didn't make the funeral. You're supposed to be there. Like Yogi Berra says, if you don't go to other people's funerals, they won't go to yours. It sounds funny, but it's true. It's true. If you don't go to other people's funerals, they're not going to go to you. Maybe not the same person, obviously.
Let me hit you with one other.
But I really think that showing up in a small community like Providence and Rhode Island, I mean, I think the word gets out pretty quick if you're not an effective
it's a small
shower-upper. And I think these things, I mean, Claiborne Pell for years up here would send Christmas cards, and just these things matter, you know. And I know that.
Other local politician, Barney Frank, is retiring. What do you think of that?
That's a loss. Barney can be caustic, and he's already fighting with Eddie Markey on the way down. He didn't help me in the, house. Yeah. You know, he didn't help me
the
get
redistricting in Massachusetts.
You know, how many guys blame other guys? Usually it's your job to get your, you know. I heard the great story about Barney. I said, how come people like him in the Congress, but they didn't like him in the House, in the State House? Well, they said he didn't intend to stay there, so he didn't make any friends. But the thing about Massachusetts, since it's a state that's shrinking in terms of population, you always have to have strong friendships in the State House.
Scott Brown, Republican senator, is incumbent going against...
That's a with him. I mean, he's a good politician. He's like a pure quarterback. He can do one thing. Like a quarterback, he can throw the ball good, but he can't. He's a good passer. He's a good politician. The barn coat or whatever it is, what do they call that? The coat he wore.
The
brown coat, the truck. Great imagery. And of course he ran against Martha Coakley, who did everything wrong. I'm not going to the Sox game. I'm not going to stand out of Fenway. He ran the ad with Jack Kennedy, by the way, which I thought was very impressive. He ran the ad in his campaign with Jack Kennedy, and she acted like there was never any Kennedy in Massachusetts. What are you trying to do? Reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, right.
You got a political party with a great legacy of service. Nobody has ever been a better service senator than Teddy.
Do you think
whatever you think about
trouble, though?
Teddy was
you know Massachusetts politics.
I think unlike Coakley, who had the problem, fared out of seeming like an elitist, an Ivy Leaguer from Boston, and the establishment, the cocktail circuit with the elite. A little too Dukakis-y.
Dukakis-y, I think you invented a word.
But whereas I think that Elizabeth Warren has a reputation for taking on the big shots on Wall Street. And if she's seen as the little guy, against I was going to say smarmy because he's not smarmy, the suave, good-looking senator. Maybe she'll get that regular, good old working class vote back for the Democrats, the Irish, Italians, everybody else, the regular people. If she can get that back and not kiss that off because she looks like an elitist. But I think it's going to be tough because he's a tough politician. And I root for the fact, I don't know either of them very well, but I root for the fact that she's got exactly the right position to be in politics, the right leverage. You should be the person running for office this time who's willing to restore the power of regular people in politics. If you can be that person in either party, to restore the power of regular people against the establishment, against Wall Street, I think you're where you got to be politically today. They really don't like it. That's where the Occupy people are right and the Tea Party people are right. And they can actually get together on this. That people think it's not on the level anymore. The tax policy, trade policy, regulatory policy is being fixed by the guys with money who go to these fundraisers. And you know what? They're right.
The book is Jack Kennedy, Elusive Hero. The author is Chris Matthews of MSNBC's Hardball. Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.
And Rhodey.
If you missed any of it, you can catch this program on WPRI.com. For Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.